bit about John 14. And I thought that it would be great to hear the text. And so, hopefully this is going to be loud enough. So just a precursor, I like funny things on YouTube. And there's some things I like about the way it's presented, and there's other things I don't like, and we can probably spend some time talking about that later. But for now, I think it kind of gives, there's stuff that's going to stick in your brain, I think, by seeing it this way.
Jesus said to his disciples, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God still, and trust in me. There are many rooms in my Father's house. If there are not, I should have told you. I am going to prepare a place for you, and after I have gone and prepared you a place, I shall return to take you with me, so that where I am, you may be too. You know the way to the place where I am going." Thomas said, "Lord, we do not know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. If you know me, you know my Father too. From this moment you know him, and you have seen him." Philip said, "Lord, let us see the Father, and then we shall be satisfied." "Have I been with you all this time, Philip?" said Jesus to him, "and you still do not know me? To have seen me is to have seen my Father. So how can you say, 'Let us see the Father'? Do you not believe that I am the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say to you I do not speak as myself. It is the Father living in me who is doing this work. You must believe me when I say that I am the Father and the Father is in me. Believe it in the evidence of this work, if for no other reason. I tell you most solemnly, whoever believes in me will perform the same works as I do myself. He will perform even greater works because I am going to the Father."
So, when I read this text, the first thing that immediately came to my mind was this. When you're on an airline and they say these words to you, and part of that, I think, is because we always look at this as being a final destination text, right? Like, it's probably one of the top 10 of texts read at funerals. Even though I tried to like look this up actually, like what are the top 10 texts of funerals? Like, right?
Where's the BuzzFeed article?
Right? That'd be the best. That would be the best BuzzFeed article. We should, Christian BuzzFeed, we should do it. Jason, get on that. But seriously, like I was trying to think, I'm like, okay, so what shit do we read at funerals that is good, but really maybe not so good? Like, and I was like, oh, like, you know, Psalm 23, like John 14. What else do we read at funerals to get off task? You know, because I like going around rabbit holes. What else do we read? We read a bunch of like random things from like 2 Corinthians. And
Where's the ashes to ashes, dust to dust?
We read that at funerals? I've never read that at a funeral.
What?
Maybe
I've heard that so many times.
Maybe after you cremate them and then you're sprinkling?
No, at the funeral.
Really?
While they're being lowered into the ground.
Oh, yeah, their graveside. Yeah. So anyway, so I got off task, and that's immediately what I thought of. And then I thought about, like, some people do whole sermons talking about what their room in heaven's going to be like. I remember in Texas, what?
Christine says, "I am the resurrection passage." Where is that?
Yeah. That's more John.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks for turning that in. That's a good one to read. I mean, it's kind of like, weddings where everyone reads out of context, like 1 Corinthians. But I remember, like, in Texas, that there was a sermon by a guy at this Baptist church. Okay, so this Baptist church I told you this is the one that had, like, the full orchestra in Fort Worth, and then they also had, like, the most amazing brisket after worship, which is, truth be told, why I went to this church on an ongoing basis. Although, I mean, the orchestra was pretty awesome. But he did a whole sermon on what he thought his room was going to look like in heaven, and this was his, like, text. And I'm like, where the hell does it even talk about what your room's going to look like, and how do you even know it's a room? So it was interesting. And then others interpreted this text to be like about getting their own mansion in heaven. So when you Google this text and you read or hear some of the sermons that people, just don't do it.
Well, there's actual songs like "I have my mansion now, I believe." Like that's a.
I have my mansion now.
I have my mansion now.
Mm-hmm.
I've sung that in a choir.
Oh, I need to get one of those. A gospel.
What song is it? Salem, you
is
know what
that
song
is that a gospel?
I've had my mansion now, Lord, I believe.
No.
You never heard that? Yeah,
No.
I sang that in a choir.
Well, I'm gonna Google that. That song.
Christine says "Big House" by Audio Adrenaline. Also, yeah.
There's those ones that are kind of like, well, here I'm in a cabin, but like I'll live in great mansions when
Yep.
the new comes down.
Okay. So what was even better is like when you get in and you like see some of the comics. There's lots of comics actually about this, about getting your room in heaven and getting it all ready. And it was interesting that it was a heaven hotel registration, and it wasn't actually like your own space. It's like a hotel. That was a whole different take on it that I'd never heard of. But then this was the best. I mean, they're making little kids on Pinterest make these little golden like houses based off of John 14, so you too can have a little house. And anyway, I think this is like how we perpetuated these thoughts. So what really got me off was thinking about these, like, what is this place that we're talking about? And so then I go to the Greek because I had a shit ton of Greek and was forced to like take tests on it and stuff, pass some ordination exams on it, So Monet, and I almost thought that said asshole for a second. I'm like, I don't know that. Means an abiding, an abode. And so if you go to Strong's Greek Concordance, this is what you this is kind of what you find. Lodging, dwelling place, room. And I was like, well, really, how did they understand, like, it's only mentioned twice in the New Testament, this exact word. Both of the times are in John, and both are by Jesus. Are in John, and both are by Jesus. And I was wondering, well, how do they get that this is, like, how to translate it, or what it means, or how they've interpreted it. So what's interesting is this whole understanding of this word, right? So, and this whole idea of blessedness. So, in the book of the Secrets of Enoch, there is a very similar understanding of this meaning of this. Let's just say many mansions. Sorry, of this many mansions idea of this whole many dwelling places or spaces. So I was like, well, maybe that's how we've got an understanding of this way of understanding how we've interpreted this text. So this idea is that however good your works are, however good you are, however much merit you have, earns you into different places or better places, according to this book of the Secrets of Enoch. About where you'll stay and how good your accommodations will be, kind of in the hereafter.
What about the women?
I don't know. It just said men, and it definitely was translated men. Yeah, I mean, maybe, I'm assuming it means men and women, but it's that.
I mean, they'd save a lot of money if they only had to build half of them, right?
But what was really interesting was that they got another understanding of this writing, of this word, through a Greek writer, and who translates it to be like stages upon the way. And that it was like incremental steps that get you into these different spheres of like heaven based upon how learned you become. So it's kind of like a stairway to heaven type thing. Which again, I think totally perpetuates that whole idea, right? Like when we think of heaven, we always think of us ascending and going up into heaven. It's really, yeah.
Christine wants to know, is this related to purgatory?
I don't know nothing about purgatory because I don't believe it. No, this is not related. This is not related to purgatory. I think it's this. I don't think it's related. I mean, it's Greek, so Greeks didn't believe in purgatory. They had their spheres of understanding, which we call heavens, right? So that they thought that once you became learned and you got to a certain point, you would go into the air, right? So there's this whole idea that your soul would then ascend into the air. And then after you go into the air, that you would then ascend into various spheres until finally you got up into this place called heaven. So your goal, your goal is to become so learned that your soul is released into the air, and then from the air you go up into higher spheres of the heavens until you're into the heavenly realm, which I don't get because I didn't really study Greek mythology or.
You can't come back.
What?
You can't come back.
Do you think you can come back?
No, you can't.
Okay, well that's good. I'm glad we can't come back. I don't know if I'd want to come back.
That's the end.
That's the end.
It's a finality.
Then the last one would be that it could mean that these abiding places could be that while earthly houses could get filled up, that God's heavenly mansion or God's place will never be filled up, that there would always be room. So there was another writer, another scholar back in the 500 AD-ish, who speculated that this was what it probably meant, that the disciples had the doors shut upon them, but in heaven you would never be shut out. But all these things we're talking about like kind of like physical places, except for the Greek one, which I feel like is more kind of up there or kind of out there. And I thought to myself, I'm not sure that I buy that this dwelling place is kind of like a physical place. So what if it isn't talking about the afterlife, right? So this text, when you read it, it happens like in that upper room, right? So you have Jesus, he's gathering together his disciples, and he's telling them, like, don't be troubled. One text, our text that in the RSV translated as believe in me, I think the Greek is probably better translated the trust in me, which is what I liked about the woman with the awesome accent in the video, which I think anyone makes it in an accent, it makes it sound much more sophisticated.
What?
Depends on the accent.
You don't have an accent?
I mean, like, not an American, ignorant Jersey accent. I'm talking like another accent, you know. Which I'm pretty sure is like why a lot of Scottish pastors get hired in the States, is because they just sound very learned. But you didn't hear me say that. So I'm wondering about this whole dwelling place thing. And the reason I am is because who was written to, like who Jesus was addressing, and when and at what point he was addressing them. So this is the night, this is the upper room, this is the night before Jesus is going to be like, you know, taken out. And I'm pretty sure that while he was talking about, he could be talking about the hereafter, that he was most concerned about the disciples in the here and now, and how this message was going to be communicated, and how the disciples were going to be going out and sharing that message. And I guess the reason I say that is because the disciples had spent, 3 years studying and being under Jesus's tutelage, right? Like he was teaching them everything that he knew. And I wondered, if you spend that much time with a teacher and you're worried that he's going to be no more and you're not sure what's going to happen next, I think Jesus had to give words of instruction that were going to point them in a way in which they could then continue to live and be. And I think the words that Jesus shares with them are words saying, you know, I might not physically be here anymore, but what you've learned and what you have, the knowledge of the teacher, right, of studying under me for 3 years, is still within you. And so I wondered if this, like, dwelling places was indeed like us as individuals and having God or Christ within us from studying and being in relationship with Jesus. I don't know. I just thought when that, it kind of related then to a little bit of the story that I love that Tracy tells of, you know, what would it be like if anyone said, make way,
The image of God.
in the image of God, right? And I wondered if at this point the disciples just needed that encouragement to know that Christ dwelled in them, right? Because he gives them all these other words at the end that say, very truly I do you, and in fact will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father, right? So I wondered if this indwelling of us being dwelling places for Christ or holding God means that he was trying to give these disciples encouragement. And if that means that, then how do we treat that, or how do we treat that, or handle that, or share that good news within our own lives? Like, how are we being called, and what are we doing in our lives to be those dwelling places? And what does that mean for us? So that was kind of where I was kind of thinking about this past week of how I'm a dwelling place for Christ. What does that mean? And how do I make room in my heart or make room in my life for Christ? And what does it mean to make, when you encounter another anywhere, right? Whether it be a street corner, whether it be in a Starbucks, if you truly believe that they too could be carrying Christ within themselves. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think, Joseph? Could it be a physical? Is that a physical place? Are we the place? What's the place?
We can't be the place. We're people. And that's the highest order we can be called to. And we need to dwell in the holy instant in time and space through mass and distance without its dark mass and entanglements that have been created there, ascending us. It's ascended rather, it's undecked. And the holy instant is from the Father and the Son, descended. And a square lot in heaven is the best to go for in the afterlife. In here, a square lot. Square lot in heaven is it, you know, that's what you could hope for. And you can't take any of it with you.
So I wonder, though, when Jesus says the kingdom of heaven is here, if that doesn't then mean that it's not up there. That's why I struggle with this place.
Christine says she thinks it's both and.
Both and? You can't cheat! You can't have both and! There's no third way!
She said we're created in the image of God, and she's coming from Celtic theology.
I like it. I like both and. Everyone wins.
So there's an expression saying hell is other people. So you're saying the exact opposite, is that right?
Hell is other people.
Wait, hell?
No.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does hell as other people mean?
That
Like everybody except for you?
You can't impose your will on others. You can't have, people basically impose you, and I'm not really sure what the expression means, but it means that making life difficult, that you just wish everything would just go away, type of thing. And so you could have things under your own influence, under your own sphere, instead of compromising with people.
This is where you need Matt's pin that says I have the roadmap out of hell.
And so you're saying that that's the...
I mean, I don't believe that hell is other people. I believe that God is dwelling. And if I would say if Jesus is in fact God, then Christ dwells in each and every individual. Now, I don't know where you would get into, like, when you start, like, breaking it down into, like, well, does Christ dwell, and did Christ dwell in Hitler? Like, like, I don't know how it gets into, like, those types of things. I don't have time to, really think that through too much. Is Christ in other political leaders at this moment of time? I don't know. But I do believe that every time I meet someone, that I have a chance encounter with the Holy Divine Other. And that we can be. Maybe that's not the word. Maybe the word is we can be.
So like the idea of hell, like being other people and being surrounded by people as hell, like seems really odd to me. Because like being separated from everybody, that seems like hell to me.
This is a little different from the traditional definition of dwelling, but that makes me think of sort of like the body of Christ. So yeah, I think that it can be maybe an individual thing, how I individually treat others and, show Christ to the world, certainly. But then there's also the body, when those individuals are brought together. And I was struck by what was sent out in the Slate Project thing today. At the bottom you have your little things, and the one on the right said something about, instead of wondering why the young people have left the church.
Instead of wondering why young people have left the church, and why aren't we wondering why the church hasn't followed them?
Hasn't followed them, so taking the dwelling, that church building, there, I mean, not everybody, but there is sort of a, well, not that that's where God is, but, that's where we worship God, that's the holy place, that's, well, what if there were no church buildings, and what if, so there's that dwelling, but what if we made the dwelling a mobile home? We were talking about that at dinner, the RV, and it's a mobile, quote unquote, dwelling, and
a tabernacle.
Yeah.
Well, even then, you're sticking Jesus or God in a box. One of our co-moderators for the PCUSA recently said that at the end of one of her worship services, or the end of worship, she says two things, and I can't remember the second one, but the first one I remember is we just had church. Now go out and be the church. Right. So that whole idea that don't get caught up with the church being a building. Go out and get caught up in doing what the church is called to do, which we often sometimes forget.